We are going to discuss choice board options and criteria for science and social studies, as well as the uploading procedures for grading. First, we're going to discuss the criteria for choice boards for science. There will be 3 groups in each of the science and social studies choice boards: Group 1, Group 2, and Group 3. You will select one choice board from each group for each content area. So you will choose one from Group 1 for science, one from Group 1 for social studies, one from Group 2 for science, one from Group 2 for social studies, and one from Group 3 for science, one from Group 3 for social studies. As you can see, in Group 1, there are several different options. The first option is a concept map. For the concept map, you will need to have 15 or more terms, one or more picture for each term, make sure that the terms are connected, and a rationale on the terms that you selected. You can also have a current event video. This is a video created by you and making sure that it follows the 6 tips for an online mini lesson, making sure that it's short, has an introduction, there's a skill that's taught, practice time is embedded, feedback is provided, and your closure or independent practice is provided. There should be at least 5 checks for understanding and assessment embedded in the video. A rationale for why you created the video should be provided, and your video or photo in enough detail to evidence. The last piece of Group 1 that you can choose would be a game. In the game, you would want to include the steps on how to play and win, materials, scoring directions, rules, incentives, objectives. Choose a learner in your class and describe modifications to the game to meet their needs. You also need to include video or photo in enough detail to evidence requirements to your supervisor. In Group 2, the choices are an observation, in which you would observe a full class period, signed and dated, which can be sent in an email from the teacher observed. You would relate something that happened in the observation to one theorist. For the observation, you're going to use the initial structured classroom observation form, which can be found on ReggieNet. And then you're going to comment on one standout area from domains 2 and 3 in the Danielson framework and explain that in depth, and also provide a rationale for why you chose the observation. The next selection would be creating a STEM or STEAM activity or experiment. So you would list your purpose, your materials, the connection to all aspects of STEM or STEAM, a description of your activity or lesson and how it would be executed following the scientific method, your rubric or assessment component, and your rationale for alignment to grade level standards and your learners' ability levels, including accommodations and modifications needed for your learners. You would also need to include a video or photo in enough detail to evidence requirements to your supervisor if needed. The last piece of Group 2 is design your own idea. So you would choose an appropriate assignment or test, and then you would identify which accommodations or modifications you're addressing. You would modify it to your setting and give support for the decisions you made, and then provide the original and modified copies for your supervisor. In Group 3, your choices are interactive notebook or foldable, which should include 8 to 10 pages or tabs. Every page needs at least one visual, so that could be a graph, a picture. Everything should be concise. You should paraphrase when necessary and just include the key concepts. Also include a reasoning plan for why you selected those tabs for your interactive notebook or foldable. And then again, a video or photo of each page to evidence requirements to the supervisor. The next option is academic language. You would need 15 words minimum with a picture for each word, and this would be formatted in a PowerPoint or a Prezi or some format like that. You need to have meaningful grouping, so your words selected tie into one chapter, topic, or section of curriculum. It should be neat and visually appealing and concise, and there should be a rationale on the terms you selected. The last option for Group 3 is multiple modalities. So you're going to describe the science activity that you selected, and you would choose 3 modalities. You would give a rationale for why each modality was selected and how you will teach it, and then you would make sure that you tied that into research and theory. As you can see, the choice board criteria for social studies is very similar to some of those in science. There are still 3 groups in social studies, and you will still be choosing one from each group below. In terms of Group 1, the first piece that you could choose from would be culturally responsive teaching and learning. In this specific item, you would need a signature and a photo required, which could be an email confirmation of attendance. You would need to include the event name and type, the rationale, the description and reflection of the event, and the connection to what and how this will change your teaching. The next option would be a virtual trip. You would need to include the location, the purpose for going, your worksheet or reflection for students, your attractions that you saw at the trip, your itinerary, and your steps to access the website for the virtual field trip. The last option is virtual learning. This must be the original work of the candidate, which is you. This must be a game, quiz, or virtual learning activity. It must include at least 15 questions. It should be a synchronous activity that all of your learners can do together virtually. You must include a link to the virtual learning activity to evidence requirements to the supervisor. This must teach or reinforce important skills or concepts that are being taught within the curriculum for your learners. You can use an option such as Nearpod, Quizzes, or Kahoot. Moving to Group 2, the first option that you have is an observation. This is exactly the same as the science criteria. It would just be in a social studies classroom. The second option in Group 2 is to create a tradition, holiday, or festival activity. So you're going to give a description of that tradition or holiday or festival that you chose. You're going to give a rationale of chosen tradition and activity. You're going to give a description of the activity and the materials needed. And you're going to provide a video or photo in enough detail to evidence requirements to your supervisor if it's necessary. The last option in Group 2 is to design your own idea. And this is exactly the same as it was for the science criteria. It would just be an appropriate social studies assignment or test. Moving on to Group 3, the first option is an interactive notebook or foldable. Again, this is the exact same criteria as for the science requirements. It would just be an interactive notebook or foldable that would be applicable to a social studies topic. The next item in Group 3 is academic language. Again, this is exactly the same as the science criteria. It would just be for words that are chosen that would tie into social studies curriculum. The last option in Group 3 is a current event. So this would be a video created by you, and the video would follow 6 tips for the online mini lesson, at least 5 checks for understanding assessment, the rationale for the video that you created, and you would obviously have to give the video in enough detail to evidence the requirements to your supervisor. So this again is also the exact same as the current event for the science criteria, just in terms of a social studies event. Next, let's talk about the evaluation of the science and social studies choice boards. So a maximum of 10 points may be earned for each of the completed choice board activities. A total number of 60 points may be earned for the semester. The points earned on the choice board activities are 30% of the SED 392 grade. Choice board assignments must be uploaded to ReggieNet by the assigned due date. The due dates will be in the due date calendar, but it will always be due on a Sunday at 10 p.m. Failure to upload on time will result in a 25% deduction for the first day after the due date and a 50% deduction on the second day late. A 0 will be earned after that. Missing assignments could justify the need for a disposition. Any item that's too large to upload should be photographed and included in the write-up and available to be shown at the next supervisor visit. So each category is graded on a 2, 1, half point, or 0 point scale. So 2 points is proficient, meaning that you're consistently independent with steady evidence of accurate or appropriate knowledge, performance, and disposition standards. You're reflective, you're making good decisions, you're problem solving, you're meeting the expectations. 1 point would be competency emerging, so you're intermittently independent with steady evidence of some accurate or appropriate knowledge, performance, and disposition standards. You're making some independent decisions, or maybe your decisions that you're making aren't totally spot on. And then significant improvement needed could be anywhere from half of a point to 0 points, and this is showing that you're lacking independence and demonstrating inconsistency with evidencing accurate or appropriate knowledge, performance, and disposition standards, or in that decision-making process. So the actual criteria has 5 different categories. The first category is evidences a rationale for choosing the activity for the specified content area for specific grade level and setting. The second category is connects activity or observation to NILS, and if it is appropriate, connecting to an IEP goal. It also needs to be aligned with the grade level, scope, and sequence with a citation of a credible source. With some of these, you're going to need to think outside the box in terms of the IEP goal. Many students don't have science and social studies IEP goals, but they do have IEP goals on problem solving or on following directions or reading. And if your activity has anything to do with any of those skills, the IEP goal could be attached to that and appropriate to include. All information needed is included. The product meets the product criteria and the criteria of the task as stated. The presentation of the information is from a new perspective. The product is engaging. It's differentiated for varied levels and draws the learner into the lesson. And then the last piece is that it evidences professional language. It's free of bias and subjective reflections. There's no repetitive syntax, grammar, or spelling errors, and it has a professional appearance. So like I said earlier, there is a maximum of 10 points each category. Of the 5 categories, you can get up to 2 points per category. If you'll take a look at this bottom piece here, date turned in and activity title. This is very important for your submission. You are going to upload your choice board with your choice board rubric as a separate piece that you will upload to the ReggieNet Assignments tab. This is the rubric that you are going to use for the entire semester. So let's say that you decide that you are going to choose something from Group 1 in the science category. So you are going to, so for your first choice board for Science 1, you see Science 1 here, you are going to follow this all the way down to the bottom, and then you are going to put the date. So let's say that the date that you are submitting this activity is September 13th. You would put 9/13, and then you would put the activity that you are turning in from Group 1. So if the activity that you're turning in from Group 1, let's say, is an observation, you would put 9/13, and then you would put the observation, and then you would put observation, and then you would save it and upload it to ReggieNet. So then your supervisor would go and put in their grades under all of these different headings, and then put how many points you received for the activity here. Then they would save it, and they would upload it to your ReggieNet assignments once it is graded. And then you will just continue to complete and fill in this one rubric sheet with all the rest of your activities each week when you turn in a choice board. So if you pick something from Science Group 1, you're going to want to put it under Science Group 1 here with the date and the specific activity. If you choose something from Science Group 3, say you chose multiple modalities, you're going to put the date that you are submitting it and then multiple modalities here. That way, you are the person who is keeping track of which ones you have completed and which ones you haven't, so your supervisor does not have to track that down. But you are always going to be submitting the same exact rubric from the first choice board that you submit all the way to the 6th choice board that you submit. Thank you for listening to this video. Please make sure if you have any questions to please let us know. Thank you.